Hey everyone, it's Brandon from the Young Investors Podcast. Myself and Hamish are excited to bring you your weekly rundown of the latest business and investing news from around the world. A quick reminder before we get started that any advice provided by myself is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's right for you. Brandon Kolk is authorized to provide general financial product advice in Australia and is authorized representative 1305795 of Guideway Financial Services Proprietary Limited, AFSL 420367. Please see the description box for my financial services guide. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future investment returns, but with that said, let's get into another episode of the Young Investors Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the Young Investors Podcast. I am once again joined by Hamish Hodder live in studio in Melbourne. We're on to our third podcast now in what, two and a bit hours.
Yeah.
How you going, mate? You holding up?
I'm doing well. You know what the worst thing about doing 3 podcasts back to back is?
What?
How do you come up with 3 like little anecdotes at
Yeah.
the beginning? Like you've asked me how I'm going 3 times.
Three icebreakers.
I'm still going well.
I am exactly the same as when I spoke to you about 2 minutes ago.
Yep.
But no, it's really good. Really good coming down to Melbourne and getting into the podcast studio. It's just, as we said in the last episode, such a great vibe.
Yeah.
It's so much. I enjoy it much, much more than talking to you through a computer.
Yeah. Yeah. Energy's up. It's great.
Yeah, energy's up. Exactly right. But yeah, in this podcast, so this is another little bonus podcast, I guess. I wanted to talk about the business of YouTube. We said a couple of weeks ago that we could probably make a whole podcast on this.
Easily.
So
we could legitimately probably talk about this for like 5 hours straight, I reckon.
Well, we kind of do, like once we finish the podcast each week, we then go on and talk about YouTube for about 20, 30 minutes after the fact, just to see what we're up to and that kind of thing.
Yeah, true.
And I think it might be interesting maybe for you guys to see kind of behind the curtain about how we started things, how we think about YouTube, how we think about business, how we structure our businesses as well, because there are some different structures in each of our own media businesses.
Yep.
And just talk about like what we're interested in, what our strategy is, what we're trying to do, how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And
what we're seeing in the space.
And, exactly. And hopefully you guys find it interesting. If not, no worries. It's a bonus podcast. See you next week. So Hamish, I think just quickly we should give people context. How did you get into, not into finance, but how did you get into starting your own business? That being a YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Because I think I started my channel at the beginning of 2019. I think it was the start of February 2019, which is crazy that's been it's been that many 2019 or 2018, but it's crazy there's been that many years. And I kind of just like stumbled into it. I mean, I was already kind of doing a bunch of just like little businesses here and there. I was already trying to just like get something going. And I actually came across your content. I think you had around 100 subscribers or something. It was some really insanely low amount of subscribers.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. And I was into kind of, I guess like video production a little bit. And I was studying finance at the time. And so we got in contact pretty early on and you actually convinced me to get started. And I've just been kind of loving it ever since. Yeah. How did you get into it?
I was watching a lot of finance stuff on YouTube, just being a consumer. And then there came a point where I started investing myself and I made a whole bunch of mistakes. It was really, really bad in the early days. And I spoke to my uncle and he kind of got me on the right journey with investing, telling me about, listed investment companies and index funds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to my uncle for steering me in the right direction there. But after that, I was like, well, why not? No one's really, I could talk about my journey. I'd made a lot of mistakes. So kind of righting the wrongs of my mistakes and telling people about what I'd done and, the good things and the bad things and what I'd learned.
Yeah.
So I started making YouTube content. This is back in 2017. And I was just interested in it as well, like had an interest in making videos. I was already doing this is my second attempt at a YouTube channel, believe it or not.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I had a little it was a very odd collection of videos on my last YouTube channel that I ran with my mate, which shall remain anonymous, but know that those videos are out there.
I'll find it. It's funny you say that because I definitely uploaded like, I don't know, like COD montages and stuff in high school. Like I definitely had uploaded stuff to YouTube before starting this channel.
Yep.
I tried to look for it a while back, but I couldn't find it. So I must have just scrubbed all of that a long time ago from the internet. But I think both of us have always just had this kind of passion for like just putting something out into the world.
Yeah.
And in 2019 it was, I was doing finance and YouTube's it's certainly not for everyone to make content, but for me it was such an interesting outlet. Right? Like you can just create this kind of thing and then you put it out there and then people comment on it, and it was just it immediately was like, this is really cool.
Yeah. Gave you the validation that you never got.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So many one-way conversations with my friends. They're like, shut up.
What are you talking? Netflix stock? No, you weren't. Definitely not interested in Netflix stock back then.
No.
Was there a moment where it kind of took off for you? Because let's face it, if you get into social media, if you start a YouTube channel, you're not in it for the money. Some people might be in it for the fame, the hope of getting famous and that kind of thing, but you're definitely not in it for the money. So was there a moment in time where it stopped becoming a hobby and it turned into, in your brain, okay, this is now becoming a business and I should probably put more effort into this?
Yeah, it was funny. Like looking back, it was the growth of like kind of views and subscribers was actually pretty consistent. And looking back, it's kind of shocking that, it'd be like 1 week you'd gain 1 subscriber at the beginning, like 2 subscribers, and the next week it'd be like 4 subscribers. And I think I was posting 3 to 5 videos a week, and these were very low effort videos, but I was posting a lot. I was spending a lot of time doing it. And it is kind of crazy looking back that I just did that for so long with basically there was like, things were kind of snowballing, but I think it took 8 months to get to 1,000 subscribers.
Right.
And, that doesn't really, it's a nice number, but it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't translate, 1,000 subscribers doesn't translate into money. I think the first time that I saw it as, okay, maybe I should, because I was doing multiple things at once. So like maybe I should put, all my effort into YouTube, was I did a kind of like a brand, not a brand deal, but I did a kind of a promotion with an Australian brokerage firm. And I remember I did the video and I think I made like $500 from the video. And I was like, whoa, like that's kind of like, that's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I think that was the moment that I was like, okay, I can see the potential. Like if I'm 1,000 subscribers and I just did that, what if I was 100,000 subscribers? What if I was 1 million subscribers?
Yep.
That was kind of the moment. I think it was about a year in that I started to see. A year in, I was not making barely any money on the platform, but it was like, okay, I could see it. I could start to see the long term.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you?
I think I started taking it more seriously when I was working as a physiotherapist. That's what I trained to be. And I worked as a physiotherapist for 3 years, but pretty early on, I realized that I wasn't going to do this forever. I wasn't really enjoying it all that much. It was just seeing people every single day. And granted, it's a rewarding job because you make people feel better. You rehab injuries and get them back to their work or playing sport, and it's a really good job. But it became just same. Like I just see people every day and you'd be problem solving every day, and it was just too much. And then I kind of got to me where I started getting Monday-itis or whatever, Sunday night where you start feeling a little bit anxious
dread,
about going to work. And I was like, man, I'm 3 years into like a 40-year plus career. This is crazy that I'm feeling like this already. So at that point I was like, okay, naturally, because I had started my channel then. I'd been working on it for 3 years, just part-time, a couple of days a week. And that's when I was like, okay, I like making videos. I like working for myself. I like building businesses. Not that my YouTube channel was a great business, but I liked putting the effort into it. And that's when I realized that no, let's go. Let's grow this thing. So I started putting a lot more effort into it. I was really consistent, making 2 videos a week for the longest time. And it was also that point where I teamed up with a friend of mine who I'd actually met on one of my physiotherapist placements to start to build this course platform, which was what would become Profitful back in the day.
Yeah.
And then eventually we just kept working on that course platform. It took us 6-9 months, I think. And then I let my boss know that I was going to leave from the clinic. And at this roughly the same time, just a few months later, we launched Profitful, because my idea with that was that it's a good, helpful resource for people that already follow the channel if they wanted to go that extra mile and learn about investing properly in a step-by-step fashion. Yep. And then it also helped me because that I was probably making half a full-time income from YouTube, and the other half was from physio, because I wasn't working full-time as a physio at that point. I kind of split the time. Yeah. And so I thought if I was going to leave physio and drop that one, I could work harder on YouTube, which would put it up, but I could also bring in hopefully Profitful, which would I wasn't sure what the success was going to be like, but I was hoping that could provide at least a little bit of something to make it more towards a full-time salary for me. Yeah.
Well, should we get into maybe how, YouTube even is a business? I think, you're kind of touching on it there, but maybe we can kind of step back a little bit and then get into some of the specifics as well, because I think from an audience perspective, I mean, from the inside, like, we obviously understand it, but it always kind of surprises me when people ask, like, but do you actually make money?
You can make money from that?
Yeah. It always kind of shocks me, because to me, it's like, it's so obvious, but I think it's obviously a lot easier to see when you're in it.
Yep.
But I don't know how you would kind of view YouTube, but the way my kind of brain views YouTube is you're essentially just building this is kind of the business side of it, but like, you're essentially building a traffic funnel. Like the audience is just eyeballs, right? And then eyeballs, you can, obviously there's a variety of different ways that you can translate traffic into,
there's a
revenue.
value to eyeballs.
Exactly. Yep. And so that's how I kind of view the business side of YouTube. Obviously, if you want to have a lot of eyeballs, you have to focus on the content, and maybe we'll talk about that as well a little bit later. But just on the, let's say once you do achieve some level of traffic, there's many ways through YouTube that you can convert that into making money. The first way that most YouTubers make money is just through YouTube's ad platform. So they have their integrated ads, and as a YouTube partner, you get to participate in that. In fact, you get 55% of the revenue.
So it's just to break down even more for people that don't quite understand. So ads get shown at the start of our videos, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. You guys see that whenever you click on a YouTube video, you'll get an ad. There might also be some ads at some point during the middle of the video or towards the end maybe. And obviously YouTube handles all that for us. We don't have to do any of that. That's not up to us. YouTube handles that. The advertisers obviously have to pay YouTube to be placed there. And then YouTube will collect a certain amount of ad revenue from those placements. And then of that ad revenue, they will cut us in 55% and they will keep 45% of that ad revenue.
Yep.
Is that a good explanation?
I think so. And the interesting thing about YouTube is their ad system is incredibly good.
It's robust.
It's essentially how it works is it's kind of a bidding system. And so, this isn't entirely accurate, but it gives you kind of a perspective on it. Businesses essentially say, what content do we want to advertise in front of?
Finance content.
And exactly. And then depending on how much content there is, or another way to think of it is how big is the audience? How many places are there for ads to be placed? And then how many businesses want to get in front of those eyeballs. It's like an auction in the same way that, if there's 3 very desired properties and there's 1,000 people who want those properties, the auction is going to be pretty crazy. Prices are going to get bid up. And in the YouTube world, that price is what we call the CPM. It's like the price that advertisers are paying to be in front of your content per 1,000 views.
Yeah. How much will they pay to get put in front of 1,000 views?
Yeah.
Yep. And the other thing to note, and this is where some of the questionable stuff we've started seeing in finance is because you might have heard, for example, that someone that makes content around video games gets paid drastically different rate to someone that makes stock market content. And the reason for that is because of this bidding system where advertisers will decide where they want to bid for ad placements. So for example, the types of businesses that want to bid for finance content, generally brokers, banks, insurance companies, blah, 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 the list goes on. Sometimes there's more generic names in there as well. But the point I'm making is that these businesses are willing to pay a much higher price to get put in front of 1,000 people. Because if they can get a couple of leads, the leads to their business in the long run are worth a hell of a lot more. You can think like if you make video games and you buy placement in front of 1,000 people and you get a few people to buy a game, how much money are you going to make from that venture? Not a lot, because you're just selling your video game. If you're a bank and you get 10 people to sign up for a mortgage, you're going to make a lot of money. So naturally, and that's why people that talk about finance and talk about money and talk about the stock market end up being paid comparatively a much higher rate from YouTube AdSense than people that make video game content or React content or that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it also comes down to kind of how niche your content is, because so in finance, for example, I'm sure your audience is probably pretty similar. Most of our audience, or at least most of my audience, is men 25 to 45 would be like the vast majority of the kind of the bracket. And so it's a very kind of concentrated audience. Whereas, if you're looking at like a gaming channel, you're probably looking at a younger audience who has less disposable income, and there's kind of less, there's less of like a niche audience that can be targeted. And so those things also kind of play a role.
So, and that's not the only way that a lot of YouTubers make money, Hamish. So I'm interested, like, can you talk us through like what's the typical YouTube business setup, and how also do you set up your channel? Because a lot of creators, they don't just rely on AdSense, right? Because it's very volatile. And you'd be sweating bullets if you were relying on that AdSense.
Yeah, and there's quite a few ways that kind of people go about making money, outside of YouTube AdSense. As we kind of spoke about with YouTube AdSense, you're getting essentially half of the revenue from the advertiser, because YouTube is doing all of the ad sales, basically. Like they're getting the person, they're running the ad, all of that stuff. So the first natural progression for I think most people who make content is to do the ad sales themselves. And that's where you kind of get brand deals and sponsorships. Where on top of the YouTube ads, you might see me do an ad in the video. And that's an ad where I've just coordinated with a brand myself. And those are much more lucrative on a kind of on a CPM basis, for example, because there's no YouTube involved. It's just me and the brand. Maybe there's a manager or something that's taking a slice. But for the most part, you're able to collect more of the ad revenue. It's still advertising. It's just a different form of advertising.
And I think, honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest with everyone, it's the sponsors that make YouTube careers possible. And that's one thing I used to be, like a lot of you guys, even I see it in my comment section, and I'm sure you do as well, is that people sometimes get quite frustrated by creators doing mid-roll ad reads within their content, because they're like, oh, well, we're already seeing an ad from YouTube at the start of the video, and then we have to listen to 5 minutes of your content, and then you do an ad read. But I used to feel like that as well. But these days, knowing what I know now about the business side of YouTube, I do not get frustrated at all from creators adding sponsors, because at the end of the day, if we're being perfectly frank, without those sponsorship agreements, I don't think many people could do YouTube on a full-time basis.
No, not at all.
It just wouldn't be possible because YouTube content is free to watch. So because it's free to watch, and I think that's how I feel. I mean, the question that I always want to ask people when I see a comment like that, why are you doing these mid-roll ads? It's like, would you rather have free to watch content with an ad in the middle that if I read it, you can skip it? You shouldn't, but you can. Or would you rather you not be able to view my content unless you pay for it? And I think a lot of people when they're really answering honestly, would probably say, I would prefer for the content to be free and to have the inconvenience of an ad.
Yeah.
As opposed to, as an entry fee, have to pay the creator on a platform like, say, Patreon to even see the content. So
yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. If you want to go see a movie, you go and pay. I mean, I guess you could pirate it, but you have to pay to go see the movie, right? That's the cost. Legally. Legally. It's the cost of entry. And the cost of entry to a YouTube video is the ads. And obviously you can use ad block and that's fine. But yeah, it does kind of.
No, it's not, Hamish. No, it's not.
I mean, yeah, whatever. It's fine. But it does, I think it's one thing to use ad blocks and stuff, but it's another thing when I see people on social media complaining about like Google, YouTube's going to be enforcing, reducing the ability of you to use an ad block.
Yep.
And seeing people complain about that, I get it. Ads are annoying.
Yeah.
But it's free. The content's free.
It is. You pay for it through inconvenience of advertising. But yeah.
So that's kind of first of all, you have YouTube, you can let YouTube do the ads and split it 50-50 with them. Or you can do some ads yourself, you do the sponsorships. You could then even go even further, which is you could create your own business and essentially use your YouTube channel as a free advertising space. Like if you just had let's say you're selling chocolate bars or something, you might have an advertising budget that you pay TV ads and YouTube ads.
Yep.
But if you have a YouTube channel and then you have a chocolate business, I don't know why I picked chocolate, I guess Mr. Beast is on my mind.
Feastables,
But if you own the YouTube channel, then you have free marketing through that channel.
This is the type of revenue stream that I like the best, because normally this is a win-win. I would say, like for us, we try and pick advertisers that the audience will be interested in.
Yeah.
So that maybe it's a win-win, but there's still the inconvenience factor. So maybe it's not a win-win. But when it comes to side businesses created by the creator, usually that's a win-win, because normally the side business they create offers some sort of value to their end viewer, which I really like, because usually these are the most lucrative things that a creator can do to make money. But at the same time, they're also the things that they're filling a need and the end viewer probably wants. So, for example, in my business on YouTube, that is New Money Education.
Yeah.
So that is, okay, you get all this free content, plus it's free because it's got ads in it. And then if you want, my proposition is, if you would like to not learn about maybe what the Fed's doing this week, or, what Warren Buffett said last week, if you would instead want to learn how to go about investing, how to start investing, whether it be passive or active investing, you can then opt, if you would like, to pay for some premium content which doesn't have ads in it, which does go step by step through teaching you the whole process. And that's how I go about it. Do you also do something similar? Do you have any of these kind of businesses, or are you working on any? Or?
So I don't have anything like that really at the moment. And I think this is the beauty of YouTube, right? Because you can kind of decide which revenue streams which levers you want to pull and what's most appropriate for you. I used to have a similar kind of education program. And I just realized my heart really wasn't in it. Okay. I couldn't produce something, anywhere near as good as what New Money Education. I'm not getting paid to say that. I'm really not getting paid to say that.
This episode, it's all right.
But you've actually produced some genuinely really incredible products. And I realized, unless I'm really passionate about building an education business, I shouldn't do it.
Right.
And so I actually don't. At the moment, I am 95% of my revenue is YouTube ads and then sponsorships.
Right.
And the good thing about that for me, at least right now, is I get to focus, 100% of my time on the thing that I'm kind of obsessed with, which is the, studying, kind of going through each of the videos.
You love the video side of it.
Exactly. And maybe that changes over time. Maybe there's a side business that I say, hey, I'm actually, really passionate about this, side thing that I want to add on. And, I'll split my time, or I'll hire people or something like that. But that's the good thing about YouTube. You can decide how you want to, which kind of levers you want to pull.
Yeah, I think I'm wondering where we should take the conversation next, Hamish. I'm wondering what's the plan? What's the plan for the future? So you right now, your business is very much YouTube content, and then sponsorships as well form a part of your business.
Yeah.
You did have your platform, but that's kind of wound down a little bit now.
Yeah.
How do you see your business growing over the next 5 years? Is it something that you're still passionate about? Is it something that you're focused on? Like
this is something I've thought about a lot because I really like making YouTube content, but there are certainly moments where burnout gets to become a really big problem. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about, how do I make this sustainable? Like, how am I going to do this for, another 10 years, for example, which would be awesome. YouTube, you never know. You maybe got 1 or 2 years, but, I would like to have, a very long career on YouTube. And so I think a lot of it comes down to making sure you're making content that you love making. And I think people get kind of pigeonholed into thinking you have to make certain types of content. But even in like the finance niche, for example, like the spectrum of content is incredibly wide. Like the way I think about it is, on one end, you've got like strictly educational content, like someone uploading a university lecture.
Yep.
And on the other end, you might have something that is pretty much pure entertainment in finance. Maybe this isn't the end of the line, but something I always point to is like The Big Short, right? Yeah. Like there's elements of education in it. They take, Margot Robbie in the bathtub, right? It teaches you a little bit about credit default swaps or something like that. So there is education elements in it, but it's mostly comedy and it's mostly a drama. It's mostly entertainment. And so, especially in the last year and a year and a half, I've realized, I might like making content that leans more on the entertainment side. And so that's what I've been thinking about is just figuring out what content I like to make and trying to focus on that. And yeah, if you look at my videos over the last like 7 years I've been doing YouTube, you can kind of see that. Like it starts off like purely education. It's just me explaining an economic moat or something like that. And over time, it's kind of drifted towards more at least at the moment, it's kind of like current affairs, covering some kind of topic, adding a little bit of drama to it, because that's what I like making. Yeah. And I think that's when I'm thinking about the long term of YouTube, that's where my head is I just want to make what I want to make. And, wherever that sits on that spectrum between education and entertainment, I'm okay with it.
Right. Okay. That's really interesting. And interesting you brought out the topic of burnout, because this is a problem that I've struggled with over the past probably year or so, is that because my channel has kind of grown into such a scale now, and because I've been talking about similar topics for a long time, kind of the value investors of the world, what they're up to.
Yeah.
I have kind of been backed into a corner a little bit in that the audience that I've built is there for a specific type of content. And we should explain with YouTube, at least in my experience, for content to do very, very well, you have to tap your core audience.
Yeah. 100%.
And if you don't tap into your core audience and they say, you know what, that's probably a good video, but it's not for me, I'm going to give it a miss. YouTube just, for me anyway, just does not try and send that out to a wider audience.
Yep.
So because I'm kind of backed into a corner, it's quite difficult to experiment.
Yeah.
And that's quite a tough spot to be in, because anytime I want to do something different, something really cool, it doesn't land. Yeah. Because it doesn't hit the core audience. Like it might be applicable to an audience of millions, but because it doesn't hit my core audience, it never gets seen by. So that's a problem that I've been battling with, and it does cause quite a bit of burnout, and it makes me have to try and package videos in a way that's going to please the core audience. So if I wanted to talk about some crazy tech CEO salaries and how crazy they're getting, I'd have to weave it back towards value investing somehow just to get the core audience onto that topic. So it's quite a tricky one.
It's the double-edged sword of YouTube. I think there is definitely an element of momentum on YouTube, which does it does ease some pressure as you kind of go along. It's not like you are to some extent constantly fighting it, but like whenever you put content out, there's going to be, if it's within the range of what your audience likes, they're going to come and watch it. But that is the double-edged sword is you do kind of get pigeonholed into certain content. I mean, I spent an enormous amount of time doing a Big Short video, which was around the movie. And it was basically,
you were pumped about it.
It was basically a movie review video. It wasn't even really finance, except that it was on the Big Short.
Yeah.
And I loved making that video, but yeah, it was like my worst performing video in like 12 months. So
it's just that's the frustrating thing, because as a creator, you want to keep creating new things and exploring new ideas.
Yeah.
But it's just frustrating when the platform punishes you, literally punishes you for trying, which is very annoying. And of course, I guess the annoying thing is that if it doesn't tap your core audience as well from a business perspective, you don't make money.
Yeah.
If you have a sponsor on that video and it doesn't tap your core audience, they won't be happy.
Yep.
Because if it underperforms, they'll be like, well, we paid you expecting this kind of return and we're not getting it. So it's a very, very interesting and tough spot. Not saying that, oh, woe is us and, oh no, we're, it's so hard being a YouTuber, but there are, like with anything, there are challenges.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely an enormous amount of volatility to YouTube, and you have to be able to stomach that. There obviously are positive aspects that I think outweigh the some of the negative aspects, but the volatility of income and views and that sort of thing is something you have to either learn to deal with, or some people may just not be able to deal with that.
And actually, that kind of leads me to what I'm planning to do over the next 5 years, which might surprise you, is that one of my main focuses now over the next 5 years is to diversify my business revenue streams away from YouTube.
Yeah.
Because just as probably the last year has told us, when ad budgets get cut, things can get real dicey. Like things can get really volatile. Like we thought that they were volatile before. No.
Just you wait.
Just wait when there's a bit of economic hardship in the air and marketing budgets get pulled back because companies don't have as much spend anymore, and then things start getting really volatile. So I think for the next 5 years, I'm already focusing on it. Because you can argue that sponsorships, AdSense revenue, and like courses or your own side business, all of that is still dependent on YouTube. You can say, oh, I'm diversifying, but you're not really. You kind of are and you kind of not, because you're still dependent on YouTube
from
views.
That same traffic funnel.
Exactly. So now our focus is very much to diversify away. So we're going to be hopefully starting a social media kind of coaching business as well.
Right.
So kind of teaching individuals and businesses how to scale and how to be better on social media. Because I don't know if you notice, like on short form content, whenever you get an ad, most companies are so bad at creating engaging ads. So we're definitely going to be kind of starting to coach that. If you want to get in touch, hello@NewMoney.contact. And then the other thing is that we're starting to offer post-production services as well. That's our other big thing, because we know that our talent is, my talent is the strategy, and the guy's talent is the editing and the motion graphics. So definitely we're also going to be focusing on leveraging their abilities to provide a similar product, whether it be promotional videos or course content or YouTube videos or social content, but for other businesses. So that'll be exciting, but that's kind of where I'm going, I think, over the next 5 years. But anything else? What else sorry, were you going to say something just then?
No. That's it.
That's it.
What else?
No, that's it. That's it, everybody. Did you say specifically what you're going to be focusing on over 5 years? Just making more content that you love?
Making better videos. Yeah.
Anything else or not really?
No, that's it. I'm repeating myself, but I think that's the good thing about YouTube is you can make it whatever you want. Brandon's built an entire team. He's building different businesses, and that is one way that you can do YouTube. And
but that's not what you want to do.
And I like sitting in my room and not talking to anyone for 2 weeks.
I think honestly, no, but I like, you like doing it yourself.
Exactly.
And you would probably like it less if you had a team to help you out.
Yeah.
You probably would.
I think that is true. Yeah.
Very interesting. But anyway, guys, that'll just about do us for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this was somewhat entertaining or interesting, maybe a little peek behind the curtain of how we think about things, how we manage, I guess, a small media business that's very dependent on algorithmic success. So hopefully it was interesting. Hopefully you got something out of it. Definitely let us know your opinions in the comments section. If you have any tips or tricks for us, to do better on YouTube, we'd love to hear it. But with that said, we're going to bounce out of here, guys. Regular content is continuing as always, but hopefully you enjoyed this bonus episode. And with that said, we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you guys.